great listener to contemporary rock music or anything, you know.
We enjoy each other's company. We make an album, we laugh a lot, which I think is very important, you know.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is very hard, you know. You pick subjects to talk about ourselves, which actually we're not used to talking about.
Ble det første møtet med den nye plata til Genesis. Et møte med musikk som varer i godt over 1 time fra verdens ledende poptrio. En viktig del av Genesis tilbake i 70-årene var de lange poplåtene med ulike instrumentaldeler og overganger. I 80-årene ble Genesis mer strømlinjeformet i tråd med tidens popmusikk. På den nye plata tar de flere steder opp igjen trådene fra tidligere utgaver av Genesis.
We had a period in the 70s when we thought it was getting almost predictable because we were doing sort of instrumental, always doing a longish instrumental thing. And so we kind of gave it a rest for a few years. But then we did Home by the Sea, there was a long one. And on this Fading Lights, as Paul said, because the album's 70 minutes long, you really felt that you didn't need to try and condense things all the time. And I mean, I love writing things like that. They're sort of little instrumentals, really, rather than being they're like solos. You know, they're more like sort of instrumental pieces. And the nature of the song was it sort of suggested this. It was a great. The thing that ended up in the verse, the front and the end, was a great thing to come back to at the end of a long time away. So,
you said in an interview that the 80s was kind of more Genesis digging into the rhythm and blues tradition. Has that been a driving force in this album as well, Tony Banks?
I don't think we sort of analyse things particularly, you know. We just go into the rehearsal room and everything you hear on sort of the last 3 Genesis albums, we've just gone into the room with nothing written and written it sort of on the spot. So what you hear there is the kind of individual influences from each of us. I suppose we bring certain things in and we write accordingly. So what you hear is a sort of blend of stuff. And I don't think, I'm not a great listener to contemporary rock music or anything, you know, so the influences that you have are as likely to come from many years ago or from somewhere totally different, I suppose. And so if we have a rhythm and blues element, that sort of is just an element, you know, and then it'd be counteracted by sort of a classical element and another one maybe or something else.
De 3 medlemmene i Genesis har kjent hverandre i årevis og har jobbet i studio sammen utallige ganger. At de beveger seg på musikalske stier de har tråkket opp tidligere, kanskje en hindring for ny utvikling.
Hopefully not. I mean, you're going to go some of the same paths because it's the same people and you have a certain common area that you'll always find it easy to be in. The way we do it now, I mean, it really is, I think it's hard for them to understand how we do it. We go in there and it's completely free. I mean, I imagine it a little bit like we just go in and make noises, bit of drum machine, bit of keyboards, bit of guitar, and you just look around trying to find the start of something. And a lot of it, I imagine, is a bit like how people, when they do film music, I think they just sort of are making sound effects to try and create an atmosphere. And very often that's what we're always trying to do, to get a start on a song. And a mood and an avenue to go down. It's completely free. We play for hours all day long and listen back to it and choose the good bits. I mean, I find it's a very, at the time you don't think about it, but looking back and talking about it, I mean, it's a very exciting time. It's a lot of fun for us and there's music coming all the time.
talk some about this I Can't Dance the Disco tune in this album. What would you say about it?
I'd say it wasn't really disco, actually. Really, because there's sort of terms like that I don't really like. For us, it was a fun thing to do. It was a little bit different for us because we don't normally let a song sort of depend totally on a guitar riff like that and a lot of repetition. But we just got a great little feel going. And so we decided what we'd do is rather than sit there and work on it for sort of a couple of months, we wouldn't work on it at all. We just had a little idea. We knew it was in the back of our minds, and we got towards the end of the recording session. We thought we'll just put it down now. And we put it down in a couple of hours, really, and at the same time as we were sort of recording it virtually, Phil was writing lyrics. And then we recorded it there, you know. There's a sort of combination of things with the guitar riff, and then we tried it quite a few ways, and then one time we tried it with this sort of drum sound that's on this keyboard here, as it happens. And it just sounded great, so that's what happened.
I can dance, I can talk. Only thing about me is the way I walk. I can dance, I can sing. I'm just standing here selling everything. Blue jeans sit on the beach. Her dog's talking to me, but she's out of reach. She's got a body under that shirt, but all she wants to do is rub my face in the dirt. 'Cause I can dance, I can talk. Only thing about me is the way I walk. I can dance, I can sing. I'm just standing here selling, oh, and checking everything is in place. You never know who's looking on.
Genesis trives best i studio når de får være alene. Da tør de slippe seg løs, da tør de ta sjansen på å dumme seg ut, for det er fra de merkeligste ideene at de beste resultatene kan komme.
The most important ingredient to developing something is actually for no one else to be there at all. It's I think we couldn't. It's one of the reasons why I think we can do what we do with the three of us is because we know each other so well and we're unself-conscious in front of each other. And the way we write tends to mean playing a lot of stuff that would be very embarrassing if anyone else were ready to hear it, you know. And it's out of that kind of stuff that the good stuff comes. You've got to be able to make mistakes in order to hear the good stuff. It's, you know.
No, I agree.
It's a funny thing, you know.
It is.
Michael, show you.
I think one of the reasons why we never found anybody else when we were looking for a singer was as much as the fact that we didn't. I mean, the people had good voices, you know, but we didn't really find anybody that we could imagine in the writing setup, becoming part of the family. So for that reason, as much as anything else, we never expanded the group, you know. And I think it is very important that you know, I stand there and I go to a note when I start singing, and if it's, you know, some of the time it's nothing to do with the chord that he's just about to play, you know, and it sounds awful. And it's the same thing with all three of us. So I think it's very hard to sort of say how we write.
Genesis beveget seg i nytt musikalsk landskap på sin forrige plate som kom i 1986. Fra denne utgivelsen var det særlig en video som ble både en kritikersuksess og en publikumstreffer. Her ga Genesis en direkte, usminket framstilling av den verden vi lever i.
I must have dreamed 1,000 dreams, been haunted by a million screams, but I can hear them marching feet. They're moving into the street. Now did you read the news today? They say the danger's gone our way, but I can see the fire.
Gruppen Genesis har vært og en av pophistoriens største suksesser, men de kom på banen I en annen tid med et annet musikalsk klima.
We were there then and we're not here now, you know, at that stage. I think there's a difference. The biggest difference really is that it was such a new thing and there wasn't that much music when we were starting off in the late 60s, early 70s, you know. There were not that many bands. And it was, at the time, also very socially linked. The whole movement was sort of very anti-establishment. And that's an era, and it didn't change a lot of values, and that's an era we've gone through. Now, socially things have moved on so much so there's no need to. And there's a huge business now, which is...
Yeah, it's the business side of it. I think it's the fact that the money sort of... I think it's in the early 60s, you know, it was a fairly amateur organisation, the whole rock business, and then suddenly the businessmen saw an awful lot of money was being made here, and they ought to get in on the action, so they came in and streamlined it, I think, and now you have the package, you have the... What's the first thing they want to know is what you look like. They're not really too interested in it. The music is obviously a factor, but the most important thing is you've got the right face. They'll match you up to the right music, and that's why people, you know, from sort of TV backgrounds naturally have a real start in this business now, you know, because you've got the look, you can immediately appear on a video and look confident as opposed to all the rest of it. I just don't think that's very healthy. But, you know, these things tend to come in cycles. I'm sure it'll change and you'll get the moment that I don't feel there's enough of a real underground movement. That's what's needed, I think, in it, which would produce slightly more, you know, inventive kind of music.
Revolution, man.
Yeah.
Needs a revolution.
You look forward to a new musical revolution?
Well, no. Yes. Well, but, you know, as you say, there's not enough. It is everyone's having to conform to certain things because, you know, I've got a couple of friends of mine that are very, very talented. You know, I mean, and one is very, very fat, and the other one is not particularly great looking. You know, and I know one of them's got a great voice, and the other one can play an instrument, any instrument he picks up, and write good songs. You know, he's got a good voice. Neither of them will ever do anything because neither of them look the part. And I think that's what Tony was saying. It's a shame that there is no... Unfortunately, when we started, it wasn't important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing anything, you know.
There's no way we'd have broken through at this point in time. I feel that very strongly. If we'd started now, we would never had any success because it's just we don't look right, we don't act right in a certain way. But because we've got established, it's different because you know you have a sort of natural kind of charisma that surrounds you, so you can get away with it in a way that you couldn't do if you were starting off.
Når tre musikere med så sterke personligheter har holdt sammen I 25 år, må det være egenskaper både musikalsk og menneskelig de setter pris på hos hverandre.
He's Tommy, he's Tom B, man.
Tone B.
I don't know, he's stubborn. I mean, Tony's changed drastically. I mean, he's very relaxed these days.
Okay.
I'm doing that with
No, I mean, in terms of what you bring music into the group, I mean, it's obviously Genesis is a combination of the three of us, you know, and I think it's the kind of approach to chords and the approach to stringing chords together, if you like, that makes Tony very different from most other keyboard players, 99% of other keyboard players. And that's what is one of the main strengths, I think, of Genesis, you know, and we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, and it's whatever those strengths are and some of the weaknesses that come together with Genesis that makes Genesis very different, like it or not, but it's very different from other bands, you know.
When it comes to technique, you know, there are many people in the world who are better than each of us are, really. I mean, I know very well a lot of things I can't do that a lot of people I watch, some people are, and I think they're brilliant in terms of what they can do. But it is the approach to chords, I think, is the thing I understand perhaps in a way that, or at least I enjoy in a certain kind of way that other people perhaps don't go for so much. I'm very conscious of chords in a song and the way they work. And I'm always looking for kind of different chord groupings to get a different kind of effect. And I think it's one of the strengths of, it is one of the distinctive things of Genesis, put it like that, is the certain kind of chord changes. People say, that sounds like Genesis. Often what they're meaning, and they're probably meaning, they may mean the voice, they might mean the drum sound, but for some people it's very much those chord changes and certain kind of chord structures. I always think of myself more as an accompanist, really. I'm there to try and enhance what the vocalist's doing, and most of the time that's what you're trying to do, make him sound good. I mean, that's half the job. If you're doing songs, is you don't want to necessarily distract too much. At times, sometimes in the past, I think perhaps we did distract too much from the voice, but I think these days, very much I see that as the role. Unless you're doing the lead stuff yourself, in which case then you can do what you like.
I mean, we enjoy each other's company. We make an album, we laugh a lot, which I think is very important, you know. It stops any arguments, stops things getting serious, and
Any order.
Oh, it's very difficult to talk about people when you're in their presence. It's different enough talking about them anyhow, you know. I think it's easier to talk about musical strengths, really. I mean, I think the thing is that Mike, not being a kind of guitarist in the way that sort of Eric Clapton is a guitarist, in the sense that it means that he does things sometimes that are unorthodox. And I think it's that, really, that produces the strength. I think the whole thing about Genesis is because a lot of it is random. You know, you're just trying things all the time. Now, if he just, every time I played a certain chord sequence, he slipped into a certain kind of style and solo and stuff, we'd end up with this music sounding kind of similar. But because Mike doesn't really play like that, you know, he's going to try something different and is more interested in making sort of noises and things like that, and being more original, and that, I think, is a great asset.
Just can't breathe. So say you'll help me, mama, 'cause it's getting so hard. Oh, now I can keep you, mama, but I know inside you care. So get down here beside me. Oh, you ain't going nowhere. No, I won't hurt you, mama, but it's getting so
So handsome.
Well, music's the easiest thing in a sense. I mean, on this album, I think lyrically it's been a very strong contribution from Phil, and a lot of the songs have come, the melody lines have come from just improvising and jamming like we do. I think the singing is A, very good, and B, very natural. I think it's fab.
Yeah, I think Phil's good at improvising in a way, again, that's not necessarily orthodox, and that's the thing. It's coming out with lyrical lines. It's very easy to sort of, if I'm improvising lyrics, just something to play along with, it's very easy to come out with sort of, she's my baby. But to come out with something a little bit more different from that, it's that I think is great, and that's often can set the song off in a certain direction. If you come up with an atmospheric kind of phrase, it can be a very strong feature, and I think particularly songs like Dreaming While You Sleep, where that's a sort of, it just sets you in a certain kind of area or whatever.
One of the other nice things about working in Genesis, with other musicians very often, it's good and it's bad, but sometimes you let them loose on a song and they go in a direction that's just really not where it should be. But that's the risk you take, But obviously, like with the drums, for example, he goes in there and we don't have a lot to say really most of the time, unless there's a bit of, what do you think, chaps?
Well, I mean, it is very hard, you pick subjects to talk about ourselves, which actually we're not used to talking about. I mean, I think I've changed a little bit from being just, I used to think of myself as, up until very recently, being a drummer that sings, I think maybe the more I do, the more records I make, maybe I think of myself maybe as being, more of a singer that drums, I guess. And I still like playing the drums very much, but when I write lyrics and sing songs that I really am fully behind, then I kind of think, yes, maybe I am more of a singer. And I'm particularly proud of or pleased anyway, with some of the way the lyrics that I've been involved with in this album turned out, and I'm very happy with the singing. And, it's been a very happy album to make, and a very easy album to make, which is, some people would think is very, odd, because the fact that everyone always pinpoints the fact we've had so much success on your own, why, and the reason is because the three of us do something that we can't do individually. And then it turns out to be ending up so strong. But that is a really good reason, for staying together.
It may not be how people perceive it, but I think internally in the band we do think of the songs as being perhaps 80% music. I mean, that's how we view it, I think. That's what we spend all the time on getting. And once we've got the music done, then we divide the lyrics up between the three of us. On this particular album, because Phil had quite a lot of improvised things he'd done while we were rehearsing, he ended up writing about 50% of the lyrics, and Mike and I shared the other 50%.
Never a Time, for example, was Mike's lyric, and you've mentioned that earlier. Hold on My Heart is one of mine, which is, trying to get a different look on a situation, which is a man talking to himself, saying, holding on to his feelings.
Yeah.
And the other ballad, Since I Lost You, isn't about a relationship, it's about, in fact, the lyric was about Eric Clapton's song. So it's a totally different type of love song.
Yes, my heart's broken in pieces since you've been gone. It's all too easy to take so much for granted. Oh, but it's so hard to find the words to say. Like a castle in the sand, the water takes away. But how can life ever be the same? My heart's broken.
Genesis har et variert, spennende og bunnsolid musikalsk fundament for sin nye plate We Can't Dance, og de har gitt inntrykk av at de følger sine egne musikalske innfall uavhengig av dagens strømninger i popmusikken.
I think we were totally on our own. I always felt that right from the beginning. We never kind of seem to affect it or be affected by it particularly. I think we just carry on a bit on a parallel course. I mean, English pop music I think is going through a fairly sort of